Today's episode of the Occasional Podcast is brought to you by WELLPLEASEDAV. Importer Mark Sosa has hand-selected a remarkable collection of high-performance, high-value brands like Aqua, Inuos, Linenberg, QLN, Qualiton, Rhythm, Gigawatt, and more. Each of Mark's boutique manufacturers are driven by engineering products that communicate the lifeblood of music. Check out everything WellPleasedAV has to offer by visiting WellPleasedAV.com. That's www.WELLPLEASEDAV.com. Oh, man. Are we starting?
We got a special guest in here.
We do? Who is it?
You know what you should name your podcast?
No,
Oh, God, that's the worst.
What?
Right off
I've
the
been wanting
bat.
to say this since I was in the car.
Come closer.
Right off
Come
the bat.
closer.
Oh, is
Oh, hey, welcome
Hi.
to the
There
podcast.
she's here.
Hi.
Sorry, this is my first time.
So, welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
This is Bryan Beasley. We got Liz Klingele in the house.
We don't need to use last
And
names.
Bryan Hunter's over here.
But I would like to say Liz did write a line that I was absolutely in love with. I'm sure it's been used somewhere along the lines, but she was like, you guys are like two little peas in a podcast.
Yep.
It was so cute. So cute. What a great line. Dude, Liz used to be a comedy writer, among other things.
Used to be back in
Still
my.
are.
In your youth.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, used to be. I did a lot of things in my past.
All right,
Tell-
can you be funny?
Can you be like just on call?
Yeah, just
Well,
be funny.
can I ask the questions then?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. If they're funny.
So my friend that I met recently, he's really funny, and he said one of the funniest things I've ever heard the other night. He said, "I would agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong."
It's kind of funny.
It's really all about you
The
gotta be in the moment.
self-deprecating-
You gotta be in the moment.
self-deprecating.
It was so funny. I can't wait to use it on somebody.
Okay, that's what she's
I
like.
can't wait to be on a podcast and tell that story.
Yeah.
Two peas in a podcast.
Okay. I have to ask a serious question. Liz, is it a requirement
Okay.
that your female friends be physically attractive? Because that's really
No.
all you have.
You do have really good looking friends.
I don't think there's a way to win this conversation.
Of course not.
Yeah,
having
you're
against
winning
me.
it. You already won
I'm
it.
going to decline
You're
to
winning
answer
it.
that.
What?
Yes, all of the women that I am friends with are beautiful.
Oh, nice job.
Their thing.
I gotta tell you, adding a female to this equation, the whole chemistry is different.
Especially since we're not talking
it's-
about audio.
Well, we rarely do, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the audio's the back half.
Okay. I mean, they can hear us, so that's right. Audio.
Yeah. Boom. We are in their ears.
The audio part
Someone
of this
should-
podcast is the
yeah.
fact that you hearing us right now.
Yeah. I want to know. Actually, I would love to know in the comment section, like, what are
No.
you listening to us on? Is it just
That's a
earbuds?
great question, yeah.
Are you
Is
listening
it-
to us on some super awesome sound system where I sound amazing?
Or am I running all this hardcore audio production gear for nothing?
For nothing.
You
God, he's
sons
so.
of
You
guns.
should hear Hunter like, don't touch the table.
Is this what
Get
hardcore
your
looks
notes.
like?
Get your notes off the table. Yeah, listen.
We're like a
just
two
because
tin
we're
can.
in Hunter's mom's basement.
There's 2 tin cans attached by a string to a little box. And that's it.
I will say this, audience members, Mr. Hunter does go a long way to make sure it sounds good. It doesn't look good over
No,
here.
no, the
It
visual is not-
It's not matching.
This is. I
You got
could paint a
pool.
picture.
You got a pool out there.
Yeah,
Sometimes
past
you-
the filthy window.
Well,
Oh, you're right. See,
It
you
only-
know what? You can make fun of how people look, but I can't make fun of how windows
yeah,
look.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Okay. As long as we're clear.
I mean, would you rather have ugly friends? I don't understand why you're so upset that we think that
Yeah,
your
that was
friends
kind
are.
of a
I don't
backhanded
remember
compliment.
getting upset. You guys just keep.
God, coming in here and harping. Sorry, audience
I
members
don't
who've
recall
left us.
getting upset. How many followers do you have, Hunter?
We have quite a few. Quite a few. Followers in what way? You mean like Facebook followers?
People that listen to your podcast.
Thousands.
No, that's
It does
you
pretty
don't. Do you not know?
I know, but it's like every episode is different. When Bees is on, massive spike.
Massive.
Yeah.
When Liz is on, boosh.
Looking for those sound
Right.
effects.
How much? And you were saying that you don't record this live. That's smart.
Yeah.
I feel like
You
that's
think?
just always smart.
No, but we've done some live.
Scary.
We've done some live things at the shows.
Yes, we have.
This is like your new thing. You live in the Palisades. You have a beautiful place overlooking the ocean. You're a self-made woman. You like to date younger men. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not really very self-made, if that's what you're saying. So that part is not correct.
I was trying to build you up.
That was nice.
I was
but
really trying to build
We're
you
going to
up.
be honest.
Thanks, Dad.
I'm a woman. How's that? Self is not really relevant.
I'm a
Who made me is
woman.
not relevant, is it? I tend to
No kids, no
gravitate
divorces, no
towards
marriages.
single men.
That's good. That's smart.
And often they tend to be younger. And I like younger men because I think a lot of times they are less jaded and more open to trying new things. They're less set in their ways.
And they're hot.
Yes. which isn't always.
But like you're kind of the outlier because most women only like I mean I guess at your advanced age are only going
I have so much wisdom
after
for my ears.
men who have great careers or lots of money.
You're right.
But that doesn't even come into play for you. You're like, hello, surfer kid.
Surfer child. Hello.
Hello,
Surfer
spin
child.
instructor.
I just hang out at high school graduations.
And you're just raking.
Around,
Hey, bartender.
to come off the. I have always when I was in college, I hooked up with a few times a child, or I was a man. He was 18. I think I was like 22, and I had babysat for him. And he was a freshman.
That's like his dream.
And he was a freshman.
That's like kids' dreams to hook up with their babysitter when
Yeah,
they get
so
older.
I hooked up with him, and then he was living in the dorms, and then all of his friends called me the babysitter.
Oh my God,
This is amazing. Have I
course they
never heard
did.
this story?
I know, that's a good story. Okay. All right, let's bring it back a little bit. This is going to be so much editing.
This is going to be the best opening we've
Tell
ever
me,
had.
when you listen to a song, be it in the club or whatever, does the idea that you'd want to have it sound better in some respect ever enter into your mind, or you just immediately connect emotionally to music and it doesn't matter what it sounds like?
I think the older I get, and I'm not that old, but the older I get, I do tend to be a little more selective about sound. And I have my new car, right? And I messed with like the bass. I've never done that. And the treble. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got a little of the thump in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not something I ever really paid very much attention to. But I just, for the most part, feel that clubs and places like that are just too loud. The music is too loud. But
you connect to music really easily. Like, is that true? Like, when you listen to something, do you feel emotion based upon what you're hearing?
Yeah.
Pretty readily.
yes.
And like, if it's your favorite song, you just feel a wave of emotion. Like, you can
Oh, yeah.
cry. Have you ever cried to a song in the car that was sad?
Oh, yeah.
Adele.
Shut up.
Everybody
Really?
cries to Adele. But
Are
yes.
you joking? So you like just
Oh my
a
God,
song came
I
on,
have-
you start crying while you're driving down
Oh
the
my
road?
God,
No,
wailing. I one time cried and was crying in the car, and I was parked in my parking lot, which is an underground parking lot, and like tears were just streaming down my face, and I was like listening to the song, and I was bawling. And then the next thing I know, the car next to me, the door opens up, and I realized there was somebody sitting in that car as I'm just sitting in my car crying. So I'm like,
Busted.
like I was busted. And then they got out of the car, and then I got out of the car, and the next morning there was a note on my car, and they were like,
you're
I
okay."
hope you feel better. I don't know why you were so upset. And I'm like, oh, I was just venting. But
You know who that would never happen to? A guy.
You
If someone
crying?
saw you crying in the car, they would no one leave a note. They'd be like, I
Yeah,
gotta
that's
run.
true.
no, I think
run
it
far
was
away.
a man that left the note.
No, I mean,
No,
if you're
if a guy was crying and another guy
yeah,
saw
no,
him crying.
men who are crying, you usually think they're probably going to murdering somebody. Like they're going to
Murderers.
switch to violence really quick. You know, speaking of crying, who's been crying in public a lot is Justin Bieber.
I did read that.
I
I did read
mean,
that. He's
a lot.
He's got a lot on his shoulders.
Yes.
I mean tattoo wise.
Yeah. I once found a girl in my parking garage crying in her car.
What?
Tell us the story.
Yeah, I was same thing. I was walking back to my car and I look over and this other car was running, but it had been parked there for a while. And I could see, I was like, oh, and I think her name was Amy or something. And I could see her. It's like, oh, Amy's in there. And I'm like, not thinking much of it. And then as I walked to the door, I got a kind of a better angle. I could see into her driver's side window, and she was just bawling. And I was like, and I remember thinking to myself, I can just go inside.
Oh,
mind
yeah.
my own
Don't
business.
ever approach
But I
anyone
didn't.
crying in their
Oh,
car.
I totally walked over there and I knocked on her window and I was like, "Are you doing all right? Is everything okay?" She was like an aspiring actress and she was just getting crushed out here. But it actually turned out that she got involved in Scientology and they totally effed with her. And she was totally falling apart. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Wow,
So,
that's a good reason to cry. I wonder what song she chose for that Scientology
I don't know, but
betrayal.
whatever it was blaring because that's what I can remember initially got my attention.
You don't remember what song it was?
I don't know. I'm sure it was probably Alanis Morissette because this was that how long ago it was.
Yeah.
So who's the interview with today? Oh, who are we talking to?
Jazz player, Garth Powell, drummer, Garth Powell. But
Ooh.
also, you may know him from his other work
What's that?
with AudioQuest.
Okay.
He's the guy who helps design power cables, power cables. He always puts on a really interesting demo at shows. And Garth does talk about all things AudioQuest, but he also does talk about being a jazz player and what that means to him, what it's like, because he's in L.A. now. So he's an L.A. jazz player, plays the circuit, does a little this and that, a little this. Smart guy. Has some really interesting insights, I think, into a lot of stuff. So what do you think, Liz? You want to help us out? Do the thing?
Where is he? You said you have a guest.
It's pre-recorded.
And there's no... Oh.
Way to break the fourth wall, Liz.
You mean he's coming after I finish
Yeah.
talking to you?
After
Your
you-
interview will begin.
After you leave the
I
studio.
hope I get to meet him
never
on...
come back. This...
Hey, Liz, you want to do the thing?
I don't know what the thing is, so...
I mean, it's just...
Are you going to tell
it's
me?
like-
Do
it's
I have
like
to come up
nails
with
on a
something?
chalkboard.
Do I have
Nails
to
on a
come?
chalkboard.
You're asking me to come up with like a sign off just on the
Here,
spot?
cut her mic and punch it.
Hey, everybody. Very special guest today, Garth Powell, director of Power Products / engineer. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
How you been?
I've been good. The Expona is a great show. It's really, really, really crowded. It's a little cold and blustery outside, but who cares? Once you're inside, it's been nothing but great music, great sound, and really enthusiastic people, which is nice because, I mean, coming off of CES, it still had a lot to offer, but it kind of felt like, oh my God, high-end audio is dying, and then you come here and you realize, no, it's only dying there. It's doing really well here. So it's really a shot in the arm. I love it.
For those who didn't catch our CES coverage, it was down to 2 floors, would you say, this year in the tower?
Yeah, it's getting to the point where, you know, like you're sharing with like other people that are selling supplemental, you know, like insurance to seniors, and you can get a nice mattress, you know, like if you're tired of like listening to people, you know, extolling the virtues of their new amplifier.
Yeah, there's for some reason there's always a mattress room
Yeah.
crammed in one of the floors, but is not the case in the Chicago show, which we visited earlier this year, but it's cold. It's like 35 outside, I think. And I was promised 70 when I landed. It said 70 on my Apple thing. I just couldn't believe it came crushing down so bad.
Yeah, I have enough experience with Chicago that at least being a California boy, born and bred, at least I had the good sense to bring, you know, like my jacket I bought last time I was in Amsterdam.
So you have you're born and raised on the West Coast here, but where did you kind of get your education? Where did you start to cut your teeth in the professional realm?
Well, it's a combination of things. I was sort of a professional student. I spent a lot of years at Sonoma State University, but I also went to a number of smaller electronic and technical schools that no longer exist, but used to be in the Central Valley and so forth, where I grew up, and then also, like a 2-year, college before going to the regular university, and then obviously regular high school and so forth. But really, honestly, the best education that I ever got and have continued to have through most of my careers is just mentoring through a number of really great engineers who were always at least 20, if not 30, 40 years older than me. And there's just been a succession of them. And I've been so lucky. I mean, pretty much from the time I was about 14 or 15 years old, this started, and it never really went away. I would just go from another one to another one to another one. There was a period of my life where I was just literally collecting them. And the best ones tended to be ones where they weren't necessarily people with a doctorate from a university. Sometimes they didn't have their electrical engineering degree. A lot of them had been trained in the military. They came from the Second World War, period, or perhaps Korea. And then sometimes they were just self-taught, a few of them. But these were people that could build a radio transmitter off the top of their head. And what was nice, what seemed to be a universal truism for not all but most of them was really brash, cantankerous, hard for most people to get along with. If they worked for a television station or a radio station or some place like that or some technological place, they were always the engineer that got shuffled off into the corner or something like that everybody recognized. This person's brilliant, but you really don't want to talk to him. So, they'd just be like off in the corner. And, their wives had left them years ago, estranged from the family. So these were the kind of, really brilliant people that if you could, tolerate, their abuse, fetch them donuts, coffee and sandwiches, and hang around with them, till late at night and on the weekends, they had a lot to show you. And what they knew were things going back to the 1920s, to the beginning of audio electronics and video as well, that were so far beyond the basic math that you were going to get in college. In college, you were going to get a good primer that was going to teach you how to study and how to learn and give you a lot of the basic formulas for things. But what I found with most of those professors, and, these were great people too, but essentially they knew the subject matter just well enough to hang on by the skin of their teeth. These other people, on the other hand, it was all doing. And they could tell you things that weren't on any of the books or that had been long forgotten, or relationships between one thing versus the next versus the next versus the next. And so I'm glad that I had a little bit of both. I didn't actually get an electrical engineering degree because I didn't want to go to engineering school. I considered it for a period. I was certainly accepted, but I was a professional student. I was too interested in also getting a degree in music. I was too interested in studying history. I was too interested in studying English composition. Those are all passions of mine, and several other things as well. And so it needed to be more of a broader range university for me to go to or attend that made sense for that. And it was funny because oftentimes, and this has really been true even when I was in high school, I would have, guidance counselors look at my transcript and say, "This your class mix makes no sense. You're never going to finish this way. Why are you taking this advanced course, and this advanced course for something that's not even your minor, and yet you're not taking this over here? This can't possibly work." And it was just something I was really drawn toward. And, unfortunately, I was right, because at this point in my life at 56, everything I ever studied, I use it all. There is not one thing I ever studied that didn't end up being important. But it was a risk as well, because most of the places that I've been to where I've succeeded, I've essentially created my position and created what I do. And so if you can't back that up with talent and a hell of a lot of hard work, that's a risky proposition for somebody else to follow, but it just ended up working for me. But I love the mentors that I had, because that was just a situation where you would be, literally, like a precocious, kind of, maybe brilliant 15-year-old boy or something like that. And they'd be telling you, okay, over there's, the wall full of parts. Over here's the, the soldering station and your oscilloscope and your tone generator and your, your volt, like a mole meter and so forth. And this is a schematic, and looks like this, kind of like bizarre blueprint with various numbers and formulas on it and so forth. And like you'll learn to like read that in time. We're going to build a preamplifier, and you should be done with this over the next couple of weekends and so forth and everything like that. There's the parts, go. And you're like, how do I even read this? How do I do this? Well, I'll show you some things, but you'll figure it out. Just complete throw you into the deep end, baptism by fire.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to boast to people that the first time that I built something, it was a crowning achievement, sounded amazing, was better than anything available in the store at 10 times the price. But the truth of the matter is, the first thing I ever built blew up. Uh-huh. And no, when you do this, the first 10 amplifiers, the first 10 preamplifiers, the first 10 condenser microphones, the first 10 crossovers you do aren't very good. Sometimes they're tragically awful, but you get better. And eventually you get really good. The whole thing is that if you fail, it's an opportunity to learn something. And that's the whole bit. But the people that taught me, the idea was, if it was video, it was from the camera to the screen. If it was audio, it was from the microphone to the loudspeaker, and you were going to learn everything. In your career, you may end up specializing, but you will be limited in what you can create and the scope of how good it can be if you don't understand the entire chain, because everything that you do and everything that we build has a complex interaction with everything else. And if you understand how those other things work and understand it at a molecular level and you understand it at a circuit level really well, you'll be making far better, designs than anybody else. And thank God they absolutely pounded that into my head, because they were right.
So was it audio straight from the get-go for you, or did you dabble in other things?
Oh, there was a dalliance with video, because a lot of these were broadcast engineers, but although I learned basics about video, it was always audio for me, and it was audio for just simple reasons, because I was, at the same time, in parallel, I was drawn to music. I was playing in symphony orchestras as a classical percussionist from the time I was 16 years old, and later decided that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life counting 500 bars of rests and then doubling the bass line on timpani, along with Brahms.
I played percussion too. It is so
and maybe instead of having to learn every single cue so I don't get lost and 600 bars of rest, maybe it would be a good and of course there's great 20th century pieces that have been written, but almost no orchestra until recently was willing to play them. So it became a situation where a little later in my teenage years, around 17, 18, 19, I started finding modern jazz and so-called avant-garde and free jazz, and never looked back. It was like, ooh, this is for me.
So aside from the musical kind of employment that you had, what did your professional career look like? Give us a resume bullet point as we get closer and closer to where you are now at AudioQuest.
Well, I would say through getting out of college, it was just a whole series of false starts and failures, mostly because the thing is that every time that I would join a small concern where I could exploit my talents as an audio designer, it would be different investors and then different partners and different friends and so forth that had a little bit of seed capital, a little money, or maybe they were independently wealthy or something like that. But, as soon as, and they would say, oh, well, this person seems to be really talented. Well, what would happen if I just tossed them a little bit of money and had them build me, like an amplifier, or a speaker, like a power product, this, that, or the other thing. And I would, always have, a talent, and was very determined, could hear well. And they would listen to whatever I would put together for them. And they were in this kind of unimpressive gray box or something like that. And just be blown over by the performance. And then being enthusiasts, like so many people in the audiophile world tend to be, it was like, oh my God, the world's got to know, we've got to put this thing out. But what they don't understand is that, well, it's not about having a better mousetrap exclusively. That's wonderful. You need that, but it's also marketing. It's also time. It's also sales support and everything else you have to do. And I'm glad that, when I was younger and it didn't hurt so much, there were all those false starts, because, you eventually learn that, okay, I got to get together with a company that really understands this well, because that lesson got driven home. And at the same time, I needed to support myself. So in between all those things, I'd work for AT&T, I'd work for Hewlett-Packard, and then, like so many engineers in Silicon Valley and the North Bay and so forth, where all that technology exists, it's feast or famine. Thousands of people get hired at the same time, and then 2 years later, it's time to set us free. And then you're off, like finding another gig. So, but eventually after one of those times where, I got set free, I found Firm & Sound. And the truth of the matter is that I'd been out of work for 6 months, and I was desperate to find something. They were really known for professional broadcast power, which at the time I wasn't, studying and didn't even really know that much about, other than what I'd been taught by, the engineers that had schooled me. And it was a situation where at this, Firm & Sound, there was mostly pro audio. That wasn't really kind of like what I was necessarily drawn to, but I thought, well, they're small, they're scruffy. This could be a good place to kind of get in and try to, see if I can create a position and see if I can do something, which ultimately worked out. But initially, they didn't need anybody in engineering. They were full up there, where that was concerned. But I was close to literally having to move back home, and I was determined not to do it. So the only opening that they had was literally in the shipping department. So I dumbed down my resume, got rid of every bit of college, every bit of technical, background and job that I'd ever had in my life, lied through my teeth, and told them, I've done a few jobs that are somewhat, technical, but I'm just sick of that and constantly getting, I'm fired from those jobs, things like that. And what I'm really fascinated by right now is learning to, work in a shipping department. I'm just really, really fascinated to, learn
I had a nickel for every time I heard that one.
Drive a forklift. God, that would be just, just thrill me to do. And of course, the engineering department figured out within 2 months of my being there, who the hell is this guy? Because I would talk to them in the lunchroom and so forth, and I could talk over half their heads. So it was just immediately, okay, we're bringing you over there. So the shipping department guy wasn't too thrilled, but that's okay. He forgave me. We're friends now. And within a few years of being there, I started their custom install power department, and took a little while to get it going. But after about 3 or 4 years, they brought in a new senior vice president of sales that came from that industry as well. We went around the country and turned that division from Furman Who to number 2 in the industry. So we did really, really well. And it was through that Bill Lowe of AudioQuest found out about me, because there was a period there where a lot of their dealers were telling them about 10 and 15 years ago that, well, we love your cable, we love your products and so forth, but in some of these mid-level retail places, they were being told, your competitor at that time is Monster, and the model is that the cables are great, but you also need to be in power because that's what they've got, and you need to be doing both. And he was resistant to it. It's just but that's not what I do. That's not what I know. I'm not going to do something cynical or naive. I'm not just going to put my name behind something if it can't be great. I mean, to his credit, he's never, ever released or put something out there that for its price couldn't be as good or better, generally better than to him, than anything else at its price range. Fanatical about quality, God bless him for it. So it was a situation where he had his, one of his vice presidents for product development and marketing, Joe Harley, do a search. This is how thorough he is. They literally went out and bought every power product, every power conditioning, regenerator, isolation transformer, battery backup unit known to man. If it was 120 volts and appropriate for North American use, they brought it in. Audiophile ones that are $10,000, ones that are so esoteric they would be made in people's garages, and very popular ones. And eventually they found the Furman. They did more comparisons than I think any magazine has ever come close to. At that time, Joe Harley had listened to more of these than anybody, and the one that won, hands down, was the reference that I'd made for Furman, and that's how we met. And as soon as that happened, and Bill heard what I could do, and met me, and there was also a time where they thought there was going to be an OEM relationship. That kind of fell through. But the upshot of all of it was him offering me a job. And as flattered as I was, and as much as a part of me was like, God, it's audiophile. Oh my God, I'd love to take this. I'm so flattered. But I couldn't do it. I was going to put the company in jeopardy. We had, Furman, we had just literally started to become successful. The company was for sale. And I love, like I said earlier, I love living where I did. So I thanked him profusely, but said no. And, but like so many things, eventually the company got sold, and then it got sold again. And then, it's that thing of where the big, like a merger and acquisition and the big corporate overloads, we're just here to support you. We're not going to interfere. And that's always true until it's not true. And then when it's true, they interfere, and they interfere big time. And, oh my God, did they bring in a new president that had some ridiculously bad ideas. And I was just essentially the first person to see, ooh, boy, is this going to fail spectacularly. And so before I lost my job, along with everybody else, which happened about 2 years later, I abandoned ship. And I thank God I did. And not even, from the standpoint of just being mercenary or saving my own bacon, but from the standpoint that once I got down there, I was used to being in a corporate world where it was sort of like, well, glad to see you. Here's your desk. Here's your office. Here's your computer. Here's all your support materials and everything like that. We want you to feel at home. Are you relaxed? Good, because we need a product in 6 months. Get going. That wasn't this way. With Bill Lowe, it was sort of like, in fact, what he literally told me was, well, don't waste time. Don't waste, funds, but you have as much time and as much support and as much funds as you need. Your only job is to take all the time you need to build the best power equipment the world's ever known. It's like, are you kidding? No, he's not kidding. Oh my God, I can't believe this. And then so it was just months and months and months of R&D before I even had to start talking about a product line. And then every time I would come up with a harebrained scheme that was sort of like, oh boy, they would have fired me for even bringing this up at my last place. Bill, well, here, I'd like to do this. It'll sound better, but it'll cost us a lot of money. We're going to have to build these very expensive machines, and it's going to, take a lot of time, and, it's not super efficient and everything like that. I understand you probably don't want to do it, but it's just like, well, does it sound better? Oh yeah, we're doing it. Wow. So yeah, that's why I can't wait to get to work. It's just, for somebody like me, it's a dream come true. And also, we started to work together with cables, and the best part of my week is sitting, across the desk or across two chairs like we are right now with Bill Lowe, and just completely nerding out on theoretical electrical design, audio design, circuit design, cable design. And just dealing with the science down to a molecular level, and losing everybody else in the office until they get frustrated with us and just walk away. And we'll talk about 20 different subjects at once. He'll bring up foreign films, I'll bring up esoteric jazz, and we'll eventually bring it right back to cables. So it's a great place to be.
So now that let's talk about the products that you've kind of produced recently. What is the last couple of projects that that are available to be purchased right now for you?
Well, the Niagara series are power products that I've created. You can look at them under the general category of power conditioning. I tend to bristle at power conditioner because it's an abused term that's been kind of spoiled by a lot of bad designs that are out there. But people are welcome to call things anything they like to. But essentially, it's about noise dissipation, and it's about current delivery to a power amplifier.
There are quite a few skeptics of all the audio products out there. Cable is probably the most favorite one to hate by a lot of people, but power conditioning and power noise diffusion, as you were talking about, is like a lesser known thing, but there's plenty of skepticism out there. In your opinion, to confirm the bias that some of these people, are there power conditioners that you've come across that are hooey? There's really nothing going on.
This is complex, and by the way, I've also designed our new line of power cables. So I'm now definitely into the realm of being a complete fraud and charlatan, and been called that on multiple blogs and so forth. So it's a lot of fun. And right after that, I will be I'm working on a new line of speaker cables with Bill that incorporates some of my technologies along with many of his. And the following year, we're going to be doing interconnect. So I'm now doing more than just power. But the thing of it is that it's not that these products can't be measured. It's that the double E's that want to be snarky about this and say this is all impossible need to get off their lazy rear ends, and they need to actually do some real work for a change. And instead of putting all their efforts into being like a 15-year-old in their mom's basement, telling everybody that, like, you're delusional, you're full of it. No. You're an engineer, sir or madam. Your job, when 9 out of 10 audiophiles tell you that they hear something, it's not your job to tell them that they can't hear and they need an ABX switch so that they'll too agree that they can't hear anymore. No, your job is to understand what they just heard. Because to that engineer's credit, what's usually described in most marketing material is fanciful to being utterly ridiculous. Most of these things work for far more simple reasons than people would ever really imagine. It's rarely quantum physics. Quantum physics is nice for marketing because you can kind of like wrap everything into a patina of like, I could tell you how this product works, but it's very secretive. The technology in part came from the military, and I might need to kill you. You don't have the right clearance. I respect you, sir, but still, it's a situation where you have to understand that with power, it really comes down to the lunar rays. You see, when the lunar rays come down, they come down with a vibration that's not constant with 60 or 50 cycles. And when these two coalesce and collide together, the crystal structure, not only of all the conductive materials, but also of everything in the circuitry, becomes discordant and misaligned. And when it does this in a certain way that's very, very hard to quantize and certainly can't be measured with any device known to man, or at least that we can deal with at this time. But it's certainly something that's palpable, real, and that you'll hear and that you'll feel. Yeah, when I hear crap like that, I just basically I have no patience for this. It's sort of like, okay, 9 times out of 10, this could be described with Ohm's law, particularly with power. It's simple. But people don't want to look at it that way. And, to be fair, when it's the audiophile community, these products are expensive. So I understand that from a marketing standpoint, you have to have a good, engaging story. Mm-hmm. So I do have some sympathy for marketing. I do. I'm not anti-marketing, but it would be nice if, I think that the snarky attacks would be a little less vicious if people were a little more careful about, what they said to describe how their thing works. And it would also be better if you don't know why your circuit works, just admit that. Just do what Bill Lowe did for years with certain things. Just say, I don't know exactly why it works. I just know that it sounds better. And that's a scientific approach because I've tried one variable at a time, multiple approaches, and this is the one that sounds good. I'm the type of person that because of my training, I need to understand why and I need to figure out how to measure it. Not so I can prove to somebody who's never going to buy our product anyway that what I do is legitimate, but because I'll learn something from it. And the more I learn about it, the better I can make it, consequently. So this is essentially what it comes down to. But no, I mean, the thing is that with these cables, with these power products, yes, some of them have been kind of like hit and miss. Some of them have been quite good. I like a lot of my competitors. I brought not all of them, but many of them, most of the best ones, into the laboratory. I reverse engineered almost everybody. Not to copy them, but because I get inspired by it. I learn something from everybody. It's just like 3-level chess, or it's like a really good puzzle, trying to figure out not only what they've done, but trying to understand why they did it. The why is always the best part. Any good engineer can take somebody else's work and just spend all day looking through all the circuitry and reversing it, and writing the whole thing out. Okay, boom, here's what they did. But understanding why they did it, far more valuable, but much more difficult to come to the conclusion. You need more of those parts in order to coalesce and put that together. But in terms of proving all of this, particularly in the last 20 years or so, ever since we've been doing digital audio and we've got, fairly affordable software along with spectrum analysis, with digital difference files in particular, this stuff is really, really easy to document. And for power, a big part of what you're doing is just simply noise dissipation. It's lowering the noise floor. Why do you want to lower the noise floor? Because noise floor, along with low-level audio detail, is going to mask part of your signal. That's resolution that you pay dearly for that's going away. And once you lose the information, it's lost forever. Down the chain, past the power through going from your mains all the way to all of your power supplies. Well, you can go to a better DAC, you can get a better CD player, you can get a better turntable, you can get a better tone armor cartridge, you can get a better loudspeaker, you can get a better amplifier, and all those things are incredibly worth doing. But if you do any of those things, and all those products with a power cord are plugged into the wall or a basic strip, and your cords are the stock cords that came with your product, what I know from digital difference files, and I can prove this, and I can show my work, and I can have other engineers do this as well, a lot of your low-level details sub -70 to -80 dBu, and below that, up to a third of that information is being covered up and lost to noise. And you're also increasing the transient intermodulation distortion, which creates a lot of grain and glare along with every audio transient that comes along. So this is very provable. It's very easy to measure if people would just bother to do some work.
So, but just back to when I was at, have you torn anybody's power conditioner apart and there was just nothing in it that was worth doing anything?
The truth of the matter is that a lot of the engineers that I worked with traditionally, particularly when I was with Furman, would probably open up about, I'm going to say 70% of the ones sold in the audiophile world, and they would be snarky, or they would say there's nothing in here, or they would say that this thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. They're not correct.
Yeah, okay.
Because you plug the thing in and you hear a difference. And what did I say before? You can hear a difference, you can measure it. The problem is that they're not looking carefully enough. The problem with too many engineers is that they open something up, and if they don't see what they expect, or they don't understand what they're looking at, and they put it up onto a bench and measure the things that they know to measure,
right, and
they don't see any kind of like appreciable difference going on, their immediate impression is that, aha, these people are false. These people are, this is hokum. These people are charlatans. But the fact of the matter is that if they would bother to do what they never seem to want to do, which is to put it into a system and listen to it, they would notice, oh, wow, actually there's a difference.
I've actually seen comments on the Facebook or forums. It's like I don't need to, is the response. I don't need to listen. I've seen the chart. But here's another thing that's
called insecurity. And once again, that person needs to get off their lazy ass and do some work. How dare they? That's not their job. Their job is science. Their job is to understand the world around them and to figure out how to measure it, how to figure it out, how to understand it. You're not understanding something by shutting it down.
And that's the other thing that was confusing me, is because it's like, if you are so concerned with data, doesn't the response from a bunch of people in the comment section mean something? The fact that you're shutting it down is almost like saying, I'm refusing to accept the most obvious variable in this, and that people are hearing a difference or claim to hear a difference. It's just a weird thing to shut it off when you're like, I'm looking at all these things and it's saying that it can't make a difference. But the one thing that says it is a difference, I won't accept that variable. It's the most important variable, what it sounds like.
Well, again, that's defensiveness. And it's not true of all engineers. It's just it's a certain subset of them, and I think it has something to do with the fact that in the engineering community, there's kind of demographics, and if you look at it, the problem with a lot of engineers throughout technology, not just audio, because God knows audio is a pretty small market if you look at it, particularly compared to programming and anything digital in this day and age. But it's a situation where you worked your ass off in school, you put yourself into massive debt to get into engineering school, like so many people in college now. So you're not unique in that regard, but still, you were the good student. You got A's all through science and math. Yeah. You went to engineering school. You worked your tail off and everything like that. You got your degree, and you got paid off for your good work and everything like that because your friends that didn't study so hard, or maybe didn't go to college or at least to a full university and everything like that, they had the crummy $30,000 job or $25,000 job getting out of when in their 20s when they got out, and when you finished engineering school, you got to go into a place and you were making $45,000 or $50,000. Yeah, I win. The problem is that they hit their 30s and 40s, and they're still making about $50,000 or $60,000, and they're watching their friend that that never went to college, that coasted on charm, who went into sales and they're making $150,000 or $200,000 and fat commissions, and they're pissed.
Wow. I just have to say something. I am blown away because that is identical to my existence around college. You nailed it with the numbers. It's like I'm looking at this, that, and the other thing, and I got an engineering buddy, and he's exact numbers. It was like, oh, we're going to go do 20, 25, maybe 30. Oh, this one has 35. And all the engineering majors made 45. They were 45 to 50, something like that. They took that stuff and they went, and then you know what? The sales guys, the ones with interpersonal skills, dude, I got friends making $350,000 now from sales.
Of course.
And that is like that's higher than doctors and stuff. And they're not even like the most charming. They're just dedicated. And you can look at kids who are listening. You want to make money, you can go into sales. There's a lot of money in it. Just sell the right thing, not door to door. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it was like the engineers, and they were the ones that suffered. It was hard, and the math was intense.
Yes.
And they were the heroes in my mind, and they still are the heroes in my mind. Because coasting by in sales on charm, if we go back, okay, and the world gets leveled, no one knows how a frickin' cell phone works. Would never know how a cell phone works. A sales guy's not going to help you survive. They are the infrastructure that keeps this world moving at the pace and in the direction we are going. We owe everything to them about convenience. However, once you have that product, you need it sold somehow. So it's how the world works.
Yeah, so it's a situation where it's really unfair, and they hit that point in their life or something like that where they're 45 or they're 50 or something like that, and not all of them, but some of them I think just kind of like get bitter, and they kind of develop this kind of worldview, and what that all has to do with is just this kind of engineering sort of variation of a messianic complex where they're going to save you, me, and the rest of the world from themselves. That's why they don't need to listen. That's why they're just going to shut down every argument because no, you're wrong. It's dogmatism, and it's just sort of this is the way the world is. I don't have everything. I didn't get all the things that I hoped for, and I felt like I deserved. But at the very least, the thing that I can hold on to is, God damn it, I know the truth, and I'm going to make sure that you know it too.
Yeah, the one thing that always kind of confused me was this sense of saviorism. Why are you taking your personal time, right? And not everybody, it's not infinite, or hopefully you have something to do. But why are you, because it's like they're acting, I can't let someone get their precious dollars. And maybe that's part of it too, because the money is tighter than they expected to be at that point in their life. And they're saying, I have to save the unknowing about this trap. But maybe that's it, because
they feel like this is the truth, and again, it's sort of like being it's a variation on the messianic complex. It's a situation where they need to be the top dog or the alpha dog in their sewing circle, and it just becomes a situation where I don't have much, but I'm the person in my social strata that everybody looks up to. I'm the person that's top here. Maybe I'm not top at home. Maybe I'm not top monetarily. Maybe I don't have all the things that I wanted. Maybe I'm not top at work. But but on these particular subjects and everything like that, I get to be in charge. I get to be the person of authority and everything like that. So it's part of like their pride. And I understand that. I feel bad about that situation. It's not fair. But on the other hand, half the people in my life are educators. So, if you feel bad that you're, like an engineer and you're still, pulling down $60,000 or $70,000, a year living in, parts of, or the outskirts of Silicon Valley or something like that. Okay. How about my friends that have their doctorate? They're at a leading university and they're pulling $57,000.
That's a whole nother thing. The teaching, the respect.
God,
of
do we
teachers.
not respect teachers in this nation?
I don't even. I can get into it. I get a little worked up sometimes.
We all should.
And the really crazy thing, and maybe you can respect this as well, is that I just talked to somebody who's saying that the first things to go are art and music. But I always thought that was an out there thing. People were telling me, no, listen, there's no music and there's no art at my child's school. I'm like, that's just like a real thing? Because I thought that was like a fear thing. But literally, he's like, no, there's nothing. I'm like, that's unacceptable.
That's been true in a lot of school districts now for 30 years. It's been moving in that direction.
And how many opportunities for beautiful, inspiring art have been missed just because it wasn't there for these kids? How do you know who this person? And that's the kind of thing that, sometimes life will destroy an opportunity for great art. Sometimes the pain creates it too. But like you're like, if you never knew, what if you just never picked up an instrument, but you were that guy? Maybe not you're the greatest cello player in the world, but you're a songwriter, and that's not the same thing as picking up an instrument. But you just never got the inspiration. Never happened. That is like real tragedy in my. I know there's other real survival tragedy, but art is still part of life, I think, and
sure.
For it to not be shared, to not be inspired is a real tragedy, I think.
It's the balance, and it's really really important. And I can't tell you how many times that I've worked with sales teams and sales departments and even motivational speakers and things like that, and it's always just analogy after analogy and after analogy that has to do with their days in athletics and sports. Yeah. And drawing from those life lessons and everything like that. And they're not wrong. And that's great. And it's great that they had that opportunity. But those same people will turn into parents and sort of like, well, for God's sakes, we got to do everything. Or we're going to Valley Conference this year and everything like that. The coach is a little pricey and everything like that. But come on, this is important. We're not going to let that go. But like music and everything like that, the budget's tight, and we got to get back to the essentials: reading, writing, and arithmetic. And what would be even better is if we just tested everybody to death, and the teachers weren't even really teaching anymore. They're really just teaching to the test, because that way we can compete with the rest of the world. Whatever, Yeah. And then in the meantime, the Congress that is also pushing the same nonsense of, we've got to go to charter schools and we've got to get rid of public schools and we've got to, do better with the tests, and we're coddling these kids too terribly much, and we've got to test and do more testing. The problem with that last administration is the tests weren't right, but now we've hired a new, conglomerate with the better tests, and that's really going to turn, like the tide with education and so forth. In the meantime, what people don't really want to take a look at, and basically look what's behind the curtain, is the fact that, by the way, it makes no difference whether it's conservatives or liberals. The thing that they have in common is where they're taking their kids, if they brought them to Washington, are private schools that have one thing in common. It might be a religious school, it might be an independent school, but what they always have in common is none of them teach to test. In fact, they do very little testing, and they make sure that the kids know how to learn. And they all end up going to Ivy League schools and doing well.
Went a little down the rabbit hole there, but I couldn't put on the brakes myself. I had to let it go. I was like, it is sad. And listen, we all love music. Everybody listening to this podcast loves music. I'm sure we kind of all share the same mentality here that, we need new artists badly. We need some really creative things to keep the engine going, to keep the music coming. And I don't think anybody really, should disagree with that. So we'll leave that in. I'm not going to edit that bit out. We're going to keep it in. But
all right.
The other thing I was going to go back to with your comment about the commenters and stuff is how I'm always like confused with the savior scenario that we were talking about how they care so much about how other people spend their money. It's like, I have to save this person because I'm like, if a dude wants to spend his money on something, it's weird for me to a guy who doesn't know another person, but like, hey man, you really can't spend your money on cables and power conditioners. You can't do that because it's a true waste. And it's like, who does that in any other category? Like, if you drive a really fancy car that breaks down, does someone ever come up to you and be like, dude, I'm really sorry, but you cannot spend your money that way? It's such a strange...
It's strange, but I think that there probably are corollaries in other interests as well. In fact, I know from being a musician that there are. If you've got the type of individual that just is, for whatever reason, a little in other areas feels that the world hasn't done them like a decent turn. And it's very, very important for their ego to have something that they can hold on to, something where they can be first, something they can be best. It's about power within, like whatever their little subset of friends is or something like that. They need to be the local guru. And part of all of that is being able to tell them, like what they need to do. It might be, well, I said guru, it might like literally be a cult, or it might be like a spiritual matters and things like that. It might be amongst musicians and everything like that.
Yeah.
I've as a musician, I've been in so many different bands as well as being a freelance independent. But, I've certainly been in my, in my share of bands where there would be a leader or a co-leader or something like that, where it was just very important for them to tell everybody else, no, that's not the right way to practice. You need to practice this way. That's not the right way to hear. You need to hear this way. No, you need to be playing more this way or something like that. And like so many of these things, it's that old cliche of like, you point at somebody, there's four fingers pointing back at you. And it's exactly what this is. It's always these people are revealing far more about the trouble and the hurt and the upset in their life. And I feel bad about that. But I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's a power grab.
So is there anything you kind of like to talk about as we wrap up the episode? Anything you like to plug? No.
Not really.
Tell me about your band.
Oh,
you got a name? Does it have a name?
I don't. But I understand that, because it's a situation where when you talk to almost anybody else, certainly in Western culture, about music, the first thing is like like what do you play, and then the next thing is like what about your band? Because if it's rock or R&B, if it's hip hop, if it's country, if it's folk, whatever it is, it's always the classic thing is that like you've got a group of friends and everything like that, and we work together and we play in the garage or we play in the studio or whatever we do or something like that. And we all come together, and the sum is greater than the parts, and that's a beautiful thing. The problem or the blessing, mixed blessing, depending on how you look at it, about improvised music and jazz is that if you do it professionally, you'll be in abject poverty. There's probably about 20 people on earth that can make their living doing this. Everybody else teaches their ass. What's
the joke? I know you know it. The guitar player, the jazz guitar player joke. Do you know it?
No, but there's lots.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I hope I don't screw it up. But the rock player plays three chords
right,
for hundreds of people, and the jazz guitar player plays hundreds of chords for three people.
Oh, that's exactly correct. It might be, like 30 people, but yeah, but that's
huge difference.
Those
27 people
but
make
essentially,
it.
but essentially, that's what it is for a lot of your concerts, and or it'll be like a small, club, or it'll be a music series or something like that in a church, or a really good hall or something like that, or it'll be like a small festival, and that might be for 100 or 200 people or something like that. And I've done festivals all throughout Europe for decades now, and played all around the United States and so forth, and Asia a couple of times. And the thing is that but it's never for more than about like 300 or 400 people, and most of the time it literally is for about 30 to 50 people. And I've certainly done a few gigs where I played for 3. It's just sometimes it just ends up working out that way. But the whole thing with this music is because economically it's so spare, and it's for such a specialized audience, because God knows not everybody likes this. I mean, going to music school, through all those years, I'd be working so hard and everything like that, and I'd bring recordings of what I'd been working on and different ensembles and things like that. And you love your parents and everything like that. Hey, Mom, listen to this and everything like that. I got an A+. Everybody really loved this. I wish it could have been there. It was a tremendous concert, and you just put on 5 minutes or everything like that because she enjoys her music and everything like that. She's going to love this too. But no, I mean, because you learn it's not for everybody. And eventually, it just got to the point after a couple of years of that. Garth, I love you. Please don't make me listen to that. And that's just the way it is. It's not that they don't love you. It's just that this is not for everybody. And so it becomes a situation where because it's so specialized and there's so few venues and there's so few festivals and so few places to play, the way it works with improvised musics is that we don't have a band because there isn't enough work. You might be involved in a group, but all of us are involved in dozens of groups. And then we all freelance a lot. And the kind of almost the game we'll all play is sort of like, maybe if you're in your area, there's 20 really top-notch professional level players. We'll literally take turns leading or co-leading or something like that. So you can go to the club and say like, oh, I know there's only enough space for me to play once a year, but this isn't the same, like ensemble. It's this ensemble today. Like therefore you can work more often, and that's essentially the way it works. But fortunately, if you've got that level of training, you don't need to be working with your buddies every week or every other day, because you're trained where you can go onto a stage in Stockholm or in Frankfurt, meet a Sheng player from China, a saxophonist from Italy, a double bass player from Norway, and myself on drums and percussion. We've never met each other. They barely know spoken English. I don't know their language. We nod at each other. We go out there because the organizer thought it'd be interesting to put our sounds together. And for 15 minutes, we go out there and play like we've been playing together for 20 years. If you've got that level of training, you can do it.
I think, 12-bar. I think the 12-bar blues has united rock artists across the world, and the language is music. I mean,
sure.
Listen, I played in bands with guys who didn't know chords, and they hid it from everybody. Like, it's an Asus, blah, 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 blah. You don't find that crap. That will not fly in jazz. But these guys just pick, I don't know the chord. Garbage. Rock. Kids growing up, the worst guitars. If you really want to be Italian, it's jazz. I mean, I've played with these guys, and they're far better musicians than I ever be. But you're exactly right. It's not an acquired taste. It's just. Did you see La La Land? This guy, he talks about jazz in just this. All I want to do is open up a bar. Did you ever want to open up a jazz bar like that guy? That was his dream, and he had to do this sacrifice and play the crappy pop music. But he started to make some money, and It's a weird thing because it's not like it's something you instantly get drawn into.
Actually, for me, I did.
Yeah,
but I was the same. I was the same way with a lot of the so-called avant-garde or 20th and 21st century so-called symphonic or classical composers.
Yeah.
Luciano Berio, Caroline Stockhausen, John Cage, and this is stuff that people get introduced to in advanced music college courses and things like that. And if Edgar Varese, people would hear it or something like that and just run screaming. I love that stuff from the second I heard it at age 10 or 11, because I had private instructors that figured out early that, I had a passion and an ear for that sort of thing. So long before I understood anything about how it worked or could develop anything, I just loved it. But, you're going to get that with some people. But by the way, also another thing too, I am not a snob. That just happens to be what I'm good at playing. Listening wise, I listen to everything. And further, what I got to tell you is that it doesn't matter if it's classical music, country music, folk music, rock music, punk, hip hop or what it is. The very, very best players in any genre are world-class players. At the highest level, there's no difference, because laying down a really, really, really solid groove for a basic pop band at the highest level, not in a garage, but at the highest level, that is a high-level art form. And that is every bit as difficult as playing a million notes and being able to burn at 350 beats per minute. It's just different. It's a different skill set, but I respect it.
What's the difference in the jazz scene in LA compared to where you were?
There's fewer places to play.
Fewer?
Fewer. Oh, vastly fewer. But here's the thing. There's fewer, but it doesn't matter that much because I'm so busy with work. I get as much work as I need. Just basically just to fuel my heart and soul, and keep my chops up. I can work as much as I want almost, but oh my God, if I had to support myself, you could never do it. You could never do it in Southern California.
Do you get paid for your gigs in LA? Because I have a friend that plays in bands, and they don't pay. He has to go to Vegas to get paid.
Oh, he's absolutely correct. No. I mean, if you're playing art music, but see, the thing is,
do you get to play really high level
yes.
performances with people who just do it for the love that don't get paid?
Oh,
Does that happen? Really high level performance?
Oh no. We're all world class players.
Do you know the baked potato?
Yes.
Have you played?
No,
the guy from Tool plays there,
well,
and he does a lot of jazz.
Okay, the reason I've been the reason I don't play at Baked Potato, that's a very specific subset of jazz.
Really?
It's fusion.
Yeah,
it's fusion. It's jazz, but everything is with basically an R&B, backbeat. And if you play in a traditional, like jazz, bebop or swing, ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
like sort of style, or if you're playing, like a more abstract and free, you are not welcome there. But that's okay.
What? They're not nice there?
No, well, you'll just never get a gig there. That's not what they want, and that's fine. They know who their audience is, and they know what they want and what they like. And the thing is that even doing what they're doing, it's a labor of love. So if the owner and the booker are gonna be doing this, they're gonna do what they like. They cater to a specific niche, and they're really, really good at it.
I had no idea. They were really amazing, I gotta say. And they covered some rock and stuff, but it was mostly jazz. But like you're saying, there was a level of performance there where I'm like, these guys can play and do anything, and it's going like next level. Even though there wasn't a lot of singing involved, I was just like, dude, this is unearthly. And I'm just curious if they ever made any money off it, but it sounds like that. It's like
not much. Maybe there maybe like a little bit, but I mean compared to any of their compared to studio work or compared to any kind of like a pop gig for somebody that works at that level, it's something that they're doing for fun. And it becomes a situation where, but no, I mean, and the problem these days is that, I mean, if you're a classical player, if you're a baroque, a player, if you're, involved in a string quartet, the only way that you can possibly make any money, performing these days is if there's grants or something like that. And there's fewer and fewer of those all the time. So it's getting to the point where it's essentially scrapping and working just to have really good places to play where the audience is there strictly to listen to you, which is my favorite. I've played a lot of clubs and bars, but basically it's not my favorite. Fortunately, the one good thing about what I do is that it doesn't pay much other than just, maybe, like a stipend to deal with your transportation costs or something like that. But what's nice about the concerts in my particular scene is that it's very much like any art music concert. The audience that shows up is quiet as a church mouse. They're there to listen, and they're fans of this. They understand what they're about to hear.
That's so funny you bring that up because I was at a show, and this gentleman you may or may know, his name is Ben Harper.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd seen him in big auditoriums. I've seen him a couple of times. I've seen him a couple of times. Shows up at this one thing, and he was at his prime. He had just released Fight for Your Mind, and he comes out, and I was like dying to hear him. The intensity in the room he comes up by himself. It was in this big thing, just the guitar. It was quiet as a mouse.
Yeah.
And he said, it's really quiet in here. And I knew in my mind it wasn't because there's no disrespect involved. Disrespect involves people talking to each other. Eyes were on him. Right. There was a massive amount of respect in the room and hanging on every note. And that kind of thing happened so early because I'm telling you, it was an auditorium. It was immense crowd to come see him, and it was like honestly one of the more beautiful moments I've ever had in life because we all knew exactly what he meant when he verbalized it. Like, dude, we are here because we love and respect your art, and we're going to listen to every note in quiet ceremony.
And he's kind of used to a festival crowd and everything like that, where that's that other thing, which is fun too. But he
is a rocker. He released a double live CD where one was rock and one was like chill, and he kind of enveloped both sides pretty well at the time. Yeah, great artist. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been so fun.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.